Hi everybody, welcome back to the show. I've noticed lately, and I've had a lot of people getting in touch because of the audio version of the Book of Revelation I put up has gone up in numbers in this last couple of months, which I found quite interesting that people are listening to that again. So I thought, wouldn't it be great to discuss Rudolf Steiner's Apocalypse or Book of Revelation? So I've got Patrick Dixon with us again. Welcome back, Patrick. Maybe you can help us decipher where Rudolf Steiner came with the Apocalypse.
Well, he certainly took it further than most of Orthodox views. I think the great differentiation with it is really about time. It's about the time these events will take to take place, really. And also the mystery of number, because there's no other book in which number becomes so significant. To go through it in a simple sense, you first of all have, well, the Alpha and the Omega, which is kind of two, which is St. John, who is the one who wrote the Book of Revelation, speaks about first. And then the next manifestation is the letters to the 7 churches. And then there is the 12 tribes of Israel, the 12 who are sealed. And the mystery of that is that those 12 tribes, the descendants from that, reappear all over the earth. So representatives of that will reappear all over the earth in the future. And in also that there's 12-foldness, there's 7-foldness all the way through the book. And then there's also, the 2 beasts and the 7-headed 10-horned beast and the 2-horned beast. There's the 4 beasts before the throne. There's the 12 gates of the city of Jerusalem and the 2 witnesses who witness for 1,260 days. There's the Lamb of God with 7 eyes and 10 horns. So all the way through, this mystery of number is appearing and reappearing. The first really is the 7 churches, which are delineated as really they're Ephesus. I haven't written down Ephesus, Pergamos, Sardis,
Philadelphia.
Philadelphia is the 6th one, which is very significant because the 6th comes in the 6th cultural age. We're now in the 5th. The 6th cultural age will come in about 1,570 years from now. So we've got 1,507 approximately of that time in this culture age. And that is also the time, which I have to sort of modify this with certain people's views on this, when the famous Slavic spiritual awakening will come. And it has been said that, the great problem at the moment is the West trying to undermine that. But that is not really true. That what's happening now has nothing to do with that, really. That's an atavistic manifestation from the East, and the West's also systemic corruption. But it's that Philadelphia thing is a long way ahead. It's 1,500 years from now. So that's much has got to change all over the world before that's possible. But that's the 7 churches are very important. Laodicea is the last one of this culture, which is supposed to be the Book of Revelation describes as being lukewarm. You're neither hot nor cold. I spew you out of my mouth. I mean, most of the churches get a good kind of press, you could say, from St. John. They do things, but Ephesus, which is given a lot of positivity, but it says you've deserted your first love, which is really the actual divine being. You can have all the teachings in all sorts of ways, the wisdom, but you might miss the essential, ultimate manifestation of that, which of course, in a way, is what the Pharisees and Sadducees did. That they had the legacy of the entire Judaic stream, the vast Mosaic wisdom, going from the patriarchs through the judges, the kings, to the prophets. And yet, when it appeared in front of them in living form, they couldn't see it. They denied it. Their own arrogance made it impossible for them to see. So, and in some sense, that's to do with the dark side of Jewish karma, what the Jews have to deal with. But those 7 letters are really what they represent also is the 7 post-Atlantean epochs, because they have the wisdom of those transported, how they will appear in the future, how, like for instance, Ephesus will be the wisdom of ancient India recapitulated in the future. And that will be the sixth epoch, really. When we go from the 6th cultural age, then we have the 7th cultural age, and that's the descent, the sort of lukewarm. And then we go into the 6th epoch, which is made up of 7 culture ages. And that is quite, in a way, the 6th culture age in our epoch is the preparation for the actual 6th epoch, which is about 15,000 years. We have now 1,500 years approximately of this epoch left. Well, yeah, actually a bit more than that. That's to the Philadelphia. We've got about 3,500 years to the end of this epoch. And that's a big change. Then the 6th epoch, a whole different manifestation will appear. That's when human beings will realize absolutely that they are spiritual beings. And the way governments will see that will be the true globalism, the spiritual globalization, when every human being will realize their place. They will realize the great work, not that they go to work every day, they serve this and enslave that, they pay for this, but they're all, inner self is also part of the outer work of the future. They're really developing. That will be a realization in the 6th epoch, and it will stretch, and that will go on developing and developing for this 15,000 years. And then we go into the 7th epoch, which will be another 15,000 years. And then that will be also bringing to a certain maturation what was developed in the 6th epoch. But also, beginning this division will start to happen in the 7th epoch, when some human beings will deny the spiritual, they will deny the Christ force, and others will take it up. And this will produce very special effects in the human being, even in the countenance and the physiognomy. And this is a kind of a necessary thing to cast out that which will hold back the evolutionary development. And those who, after the 7th epoch ends, at the end of it, we get this phenomena called the war. Actually, I've got it slightly wrong. The war of the all against the all is after the 7th culture age. The 7th epoch, which is, of course, way back, it's like 7th culture age of our epoch. So it's quite complicated. But in the end of the 7th epoch, the Earth prepares to move into a completely new condition. If you understand, for instance, the very biggest picture, we are in the Earth condition of consciousness. There have been 3 before this, and there'll be 3 after this. Each time you move, you can see one ahead, but you've sort of eclipsed memory of the one that's gone by. But we're in the Earth condition, and each condition of consciousness is then subdivided into 7 conditions of life. And they are, first elemental, second elemental, third elemental, mineral, plant, animal, human. We're now in the mineral condition of life, and each condition of life is again subdivided into 7 conditions of form. And we are now in the 4th condition of form. So we're in the 4th condition of form of the 4th condition of life, of the 4th condition of consciousness. So what happens then is, and each condition of form is also subdivided into 7 planetary epochs. And we're now in the 5th epoch, what's called the post-Atlantean epoch. And each epoch is subdivided into 7 culture ages. We're now in the 5th culture age of the 5th epoch, of the 4th condition of form, of the 4th condition of life, of the 4th condition of consciousness. And this is and at the end of the 7th epoch, we will shift into the next condition of form. And this will happen in approximately 36,000 years. And this that will be what is called the perfected astral. We've reached a level of when our astral body is desirous of the cosmic plan. It is in tune with it completely. It serves it. We feel our own bliss, our own sense of self coming the more we serve, in a selfless way, the greater cosmic unfolding. After that condition of form, which is we go into another, up again, we're climbing again into the lower devacanic realm, where we enter the mystery of those creator forces who are involved in the formation of the nature itself. And all this ascent is also related to the ascent we each make after death, because we, in our excarnated state, we go up through the astral realm into the devacanic, into the upper devacan, but we're only taking, as we go, at this present time, we have to shed bodies which are not equipped to enter those realms. Like if you take a technological metaphor, a rocket goes up, it has to drop by the booster things. And each one, it has to, before it goes further, it has to leave behind. And that's what we have to do. But in the big picture of moving from epoch to epoch, when the whole Earth moves, we leave behind earlier conditions of the Earth, but we take our whole being, our transformed being, onto each different stage. So we go into the perfected astral from the physical, then into the lower devakan, then into the higher devakan, and then we come up to this point where we go for a pralaya, which is a kind of cosmic pause. And the idea of a pralaya is it's really, if you imagine that all these different breathing rhythms. So a condition of form is breathed out into manifestation, and then there's a breath in, and then another one is breathed out for cosmic breathing. And at the time, and when we come to the upper devakan, after that, there's a bigger in-breath by the cosmos, and then another out-breath, and the upper devakan of the next condition. The next condition would be the condition of, hang on, let me sing this. The condition of form. Yeah, we go into because we're now in the fourth condition, we go into the fifth condition of form. And then we go through this thing. It's almost difficult to see this without a gigantic diagram, you can see. But then we go up, and then we come back down again through various conditions of form into another condition of life, which would be the plant condition of life. Then we go through all the 7 conditions of form in the plant condition of life. And then we go up again, and then we come down again into the animal condition of life, which is divided into 7 new conditions of form, till we reach the human condition, and we go up and down. And then finally we get to what Steiner talks about is the Jupiter condition, which is, most anthroposophists, even anthroposophists, don't grasp the huge calendar, the ladders of which we've got to climb to get to that which is several million years from how we calculate now. Each planetary epoch is 15,000 years, and there are 7 in each condition of form. Each condition of form is 105,000 years, and there are 7, and that means each condition of life is about 725,000 years, and there are 7 of those. So you're getting into the million, the million years, and that doesn't count the pralaya. And of course, what would happen there is that, also added to that, all the pralayas, which the in-breath of the cosmos, things go out of what is perceptible manifestation back into when they're breathing out again. But coming back to the apocalypse, what the apocalypse does, that St. John writes, it delineates this gigantic calendar. It's a sort of polar to the Genesis, all that creation. It shows what's going to happen, because the animals that are spoken about in the apocalypse are these superphysical, whereas in Genesis you're talking about the physical animals, the fish, the birds, all those things, and then they become like, you go into the archetypes, the group soul mysteries of the animals in the apocalypse. So there are many. The great stories are, first of all, the letters that St. John wrote to the churches, which is saying to what was developed in each consciousness epoch. And then then the dangers that will appear. And he speaks also about, the seven spirits. In the first part, with the seven churches, the seven candlesticks, which are called the seven candlesticks. Why? Because they're the light on the earth, an earthly thing with a light. And then above that are these seven spirits, the seven stars, which are the angels of the churches. And then of course, the next thing is that all the way through, you've got also this idea of the seven churches, the seven seals, the seven trumpets, the seven phials of wrath. What they represent is that the stages of world evolution, when a vast angelic being brings a new influence to the earth, a new message, and a warning too of the arriving and arising of the adversary forces, which we have to become fully conscious of. And in the Bible, in the book of Revelation, it speaks mainly about the second and first beast. The first beast is the seven-headed, ten-horned beast, which is the one that wants to gain world domination in a material sense, cut us off from our real evolutionary heritage, our legacy. And the second beast is the one who is the kind of John the Baptist to the first, is the proclaimer, in a way also the one who magically supports. He's, in a way, because the spin doctor of the Antichrist, and he's also produces magical effects, the signs and wonders of the beast, and weaves a spell over humanity in a certain way. These are two manifestations that will be on the earth, and behind them is the cosmic adversary, one called Satan. What Satan is to a certain extent a being that wants to interfere with the actual maintenance of the solar system itself. That's even the comets are connected with that, to try and disrupt the harmony of the spheres, the planets. That's what he does. He tries to do for his own reasons, and then this is enhanced. The beasts are enhanced by Satan's influence, are supported by him. And then, of course, they're the forces that counter that. And it speaks about, in the early part of the Revelation, the 12 tribes of Israel. It's going beyond the blood, and the 12 tribes of Israel are connected with the 12 sons of Jacob. And we have Joseph is the 11th. Joseph is really, in my view, is reincarnated as a St. John. He's the one who has the coat of many colours. He has this clairvoyance, which is, and in a way reappears in the beloved disciple, in a sense. And the brothers are all, they are the reincarnation of the disciples, the other ones, all the way through. This is their redemption. At the same time, descendants of the 12 tribes are then dispersed throughout the whole of our history into all parts of the world. So there may be, each culture has maybe 12 representatives of the four. So an incredible sort of karmic mathematics will be taking place.
Yeah, I think that's quite interesting about John being the reincarnation of Joseph, because Joseph obviously was the man that could interpret dreams, so he was able to enter them dream worlds.
Yeah.
And the way John got this book, it wasn't a dream, was it? It was a kind of I don't know how to describe it really. I was going to ask you, how do you think that John got this book?
Well, I mean, that is what you see manifested in that is the highest form of prophetic clairvoyance, which is certainly it's a step way beyond his Joseph condition. But Joseph was a great preparation in that he could interpret dreams, which also interpret the future in a certain way. And what St. John was doing was he had entered into a higher angelic sphere where he could have direct communion with spirits that had within them the consciousness of the whole earth plan, so and these seals and trumpets and phials, are representatives of cosmic forces intercepting themselves into world evolution. And St. John was a conduit that could bring understanding and interpretation of what was going to happen, what had to happen for world evolution. And of course, in a way, the climax of the book of Revelation is the city of Jerusalem. You know, what does that mean? It is a state of consciousness. There are many interpretations. I mean, you can have a very simplistic, materialistic one, like a giant flying saucer that comes down and is Jerusalem. You know? I mean, people have that sort of picture. Or you can see it as Blake saw it, which is, it's really where human beings are living in an eternal communion, you know, conversing. All the talents and abilities are there, you know, and they're building, it's a community. Or Daniel Andreev, to a certain extent, is an image of the rose of the world, you know, that which has arisen, and that which is a world consciousness, which is the higher image that is downgraded in the whole thing of globalization. We call the globe, you know, big money, banks, that's the reset, the dark reset. But the light one is a true one, is that we all of us, to a certain extent, have to become citizens of the world. You know, we have to rise above our own localized, limited consciousness and feel the greater humanity, both deepen our inner sense of self by expanding our sense of all humanity.
That's that kind of like what John Michel says, because in his book of Jerusalem, if I've read it correctly, I believe he says that Jerusalem comes when the 12 tribes are united, or, you know, brought back into harmony.
Yeah. And that is also what we've been talking about in our study group, the 12, when the 12 senses work together, when the 12 philosophical systems are seen as the different facets of the full human being. And you see then the mystery of the dodecahedron. You have the 5 pentagons, which are images of the human being, and you have 12 pentagons, all joined together to produce this cosmic form. So, and that, bringing together the 12-foldness and the 7-foldness in all these, all the way through, is this oscillation, mainly between 7 and 12. Where you get other numbers, it's often the adversary forces that are involved. You get these numbers which are like 1,260 days, that was the witnesses, and also the time that the woman with the child was in the desert for 1,260 days, you know, which is 3 1/3 years. So there's all kinds of ways in which numbers are counterbalanced with each other, and it's this rhythms that he's depicting in this, and in a way it's an incredible work, because the more you go into it, the more you see. It's like, if you imagine you can look at you can see an orchestra. There's no one there. You just see the instruments, and you can understand shapes, and you can see the shapes, and you can even go around with them a bit, but you can't play it. But you can even see how they're made in a certain way. But it's not. What is it until human beings starts to play it? You know, the instruments, and not very many people can do that. But you put a violin in front of a chimpanzee, it's not going to be able to do anything, you know, except make a noise. You know, so, you know, that's what the unique thing we've been given through the divine is what you can do will be unlike any other phenomena. Even the higher spiritual worlds will not do that. We'll be given new faculties, a new creative, a new hierarchy, which will do things that nothing has ever been done like it before. And that's partly what Jerusalem is a symbol of. And talks about the 12 precious stones that are there, which if you shine polarized light on them, it's only been discovered recently, they all irradiate an extraordinary manifestation of colour, which is not true of all. Even diamonds don't do that. So, and that represents the bringing spirit right down into the mineral, because in a way, the mineral world has to disappear upwards into a new plant manifestation. You know, so imagine a flower that literally grows jewels. You know, it's a sort of, it's that redemption, making the mineral world transparent, because we normally think of the mineral world as a kind of opaque, dense world. We see in quartz the beginning of that process, but to make it transparent, and that is about making the mysteries of the earth itself transparent. But of course, in this spiritual science, the destiny of the earth is quite different from the mainstream concepts. I mean, on an immediate level, we can say, looking at global warming and ecology, they're all very good things. People are waking up. But there is a big divergence which maybe has to come together in the future, because The anthroposophical view is that this earth will transform like a caterpillar into a butterfly. And it's just been doing that. It's been disappearing and transforming. And as it transforms, it also radiates out something which is a new universe. It's like it's a baby that makes a new womb again. You know what I mean? It's like, and that is quite different from the mainstream science. You've got all this outer space. You've got these hardened planets which are just there. And you know, the main impulse now, I was listening the other day, you know, Elon Musk, and he's, let's escape. We've eventually got to leave this place, which in a way is true, but the way we say we leave this condition. We take the whole earth into a new condition. We don't leave it and go in our present condition into somewhere else, and we project it out a materialistic world conception. So we just go into our own projections.
So it's not the physical going to live in Mars by going there by his, you know, his special rockets and things. He's not seeing it from that point of view. It's not an evolutionary point of view.
Yeah, absolutely. Much more. It's a slower thing in a way. It's also connected with this great mystery of reincarnation being something of, you know, the mercy in a sense that we have time to make mistakes. There's a huge, you know, forgiveness. I mean, another part of the revelation Steiner will speak about is that it's only in the, for instance, the maybe the sixth epoch, in the sixth condition of form, in the sixth condition of life, that you will not be able to turn back if you've chosen the path of evil. And it's a long, long way ahead. You know, you've got many incarnations, which makes it truly Christian in the sense that it's merciful. We're all flawed. We all make terrible mistakes. But, you know, we're forgiven. When we learn, it's a learning. It's a huge, gigantic school and journey through education levels of being.
Yeah, the Lord has mercy.
Absolutely. And that's whereas, you know, you hear these fire and brimstone preachers, and sincere in many ways, but they sort of condemn people to hell far too easily.
Well, that's what put me off going into the church, because I had my degree in divinity and things, and also as a child I didn't want to go to church. Well, I did want to go to church, but when I went I didn't like it, because I saw it, you know, you're a sinner, and it's like, well, Christ isn't teaching that, he's teaching love. Now I get the idea of forgiveness, but that's what I must say, that Rudolf Steiner helped me understand what the Christ is all about, and what this book of Revelation is about is mercy and forgiveness, and that we can all develop if we want to. But like you said, there are some that maybe they won't change.
Well, yeah, but that's interesting, because actually, yes, obviously it is about, you know, forgiveness, and no human being can condemn another to hell. That's, you know, and then there's those who after that period won't be able to put it right. Then the whole necessary next stage is that on Jupiter, human beings who've taken the spiritual path will reach another stage of existence, got a higher angelic, and then what they will do. It's a curious thing. You could say that those who take the path of what we call evil, they have a double. And those who take the path, and we all have a double in this time, those who take the path of the spirit rise above their double, and then those who have this, who left it, they get a double dose of the double. But what happens then is that those who go to Jupiter get a double dose of the angel. They take in guardianship the angels that these ones have lost. And then they will, through the Jupiter evolution, they will actually start to lead them out and redeem them. So it's lost to they can't do it themselves. But this will be done for them by those who, and it only makes these ones really good if they do that. They're taking on, and this is their future sort of Manichaean path where you transform evil. You have to deal with it. You know, this is, in a way, we're on the Rosicrucian path now, which we're dealing with the phenomenon of death, which is not as profound in a sense as that of evil. Evil is the greatest power of transformation you need to, hence the descent into hell. You know, that was, I mean, after...
Well, Christ descended into hell, yeah?
Yes. I mean, in the Garden of Gethsemane, I said before that the weight of all that was to come, both in the immediate and then, you know, all the after, I'm bound for this, for the whole evolution, was almost too much to bear. you know, almost. But once the divine being had descended and come back and resurrected, then that was the strength to say, yes, I can. You know what I mean? But before that, it wouldn't have been possible. You know, but that was a tremendous, and that also will apply to all of us. Once we've gone through these deeper, darker experiences and we've been raised up, then we will know that we can do what we couldn't have conceived of before. You know, so it's, yeah.
Because I think some people find it very difficult about this transformation. They want punished all the evil when they don't realise that we're supposed to be here to try and help, you know, the evildoers or whatever, to help move on and perhaps evolve themselves.
Yeah.
And obviously there is some evildoers that don't want help, so
Yeah.
but they've got, like you say, all these thousands of years still to hopefully get it right as they go in their different incarnations.
Yeah.
But I think with a lot of people, they see it as, no, we just need to do divine justice now.
Oh, well, no, the trouble is, a lot of people who put that over the justice thing, and, you know, you have to always say, you know, judge not lest you be judged. I mean, people, it's, you know, it's very, yeah, we have to look at, say, certain forms of behaviour and say, this isn't, you're not doing the good thing, this isn't good, you know. We can say that, but you can't really say to somebody, you are not good, you are just bad. I mean, you can say what you're doing now is bad, it's very bad, and if you, you know, you persist in it. But you can't, otherwise you're labelling somebody in a way which is giving them no way out. You know, it's very, very, we've all made mistakes. Even the Maitreya Bodhisattva is a being that will say, I have climbed out of my swamp. You know, you could say the lower body, all the lower needs. The child, the baby is the dark side of that is the thing I want, I need, you know, I'm not able to give, you know. But as we grow up, we can start to sort of realizing that we can give out. And we still have to deal with this selfish being who has to eat. You know, the idea of you being in a room, locked in a room with others, you kill each other with your breath. You know, so that will change too. You know, so all that, the whole idea, you know, when in the Beatitudes it says, you know, blessed are the pure in heart, blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth, blessed are they that hunger and thirst for righteousness, they shall be filled. Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall receive mercy. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. That's the sort of flower end of the Old Testament Ten Commandments, which is all about really what you don't do, you know, which is necessary, you know. If you want to get to the positive, you've got to say no to so many things, you know, but initially. But
because in the book of Revelation, the Apocalypse, it does talk about the sinners or whatever, those that don't transform, they do get punished in that. So I think a lot of people think that's why there's going to be this divine justice when this happens. And there seems to be many of them, like it talks about how, let me just read my little notes here, about there's going to be a fiery hail that sets half the earth alight, and a fiery hail sets half the tree, a third, not a half. And then there's the burning mountain killing a third of all sea creatures, and all the rivers get poisoned. And so people are feeling like there's going to be, this is because the demons are being released, but are these demons that are being released in the book of Revelation, are they just coming for any old soul? Are they coming for those that believe in God, or are they coming for those that are sinners?
Well, I mean, it's also, you know, as a certain amount of time when certain souls have moved out, there are times when this thing, well, the tribulation is one thing we talk about. That has to, in a way, that has to happen. But it's also a teaching thing, you know, the earth itself, you know. But the actual, real essence of the soul is not lost. I mean, I've thought about this a lot, you know, this idea of the damned, you know. And on one level, you could say that we're all damned, D-A-M-M-E-D. We can't take our present state to Jupiter, or even to the next future form. We couldn't, we'd be destructive. Just our normal state now, if taken prematurely, would be very, very destructive. And the further you go into the future, the more destructive your present state would be. But we know we've got to get through lots of preparations before we can step rightly into those future conditions. You know, so it's like the difference between the the atavistic, I mean, this is what I mean in our present political situation. I always say that I have to be careful because I don't want to mention any names, human beings. I mean, I have a lot of respect for whatever I disagree with. But I mean, this thing between autocracies and democracy. Autocracy, in my view now, is a kind of retarded manifestation. It's to do with it's almost like a rebirth of the divine right of kings. If you get into a power, you have a divine right. You hold that divine right. And then you have a right to crush any dissension, which is what the kings, in a sense, early stages, there were rightness for it sometimes. The great leaders, like for instance Moses, he was a leader, was right for that task. It was really leading into a new state of human consciousness. Whereas the present autocratic, which tends to become nationalistic, is insulating and living in this bubble of suppression, and it activates aspects of the astral body which are not serving the selfless. Whereas democracy, the idea in the beginning was an advancement from that in the Greeks. We sit together, we talk about it, we vote, we have all those things. And what we now have in the world is we have democracies. And of course what happens is, because democracies have the obvious form of suppression that autocracies have, but they're also subject to what I call systemic corruption, precisely because they don't have such delineated walls, preventing freedom. So we have this problem now in the world, and it's that whole regression to what serves the self. I mean, the ultimate autocracy would be the Antichrist, which would be one being saying, I shall be, which was the temptation in the wilderness, I give you bow down to me, I'll give you all this power. And the correct statement, absolute power corrupts absolutely. And it's only when the leader that serves rather than makes enslaves. If either you serve or you enslave, there comes points where very absolute conditions start to take place. There's a real trajectory. And all of us are a little bit addicted to power. For our own, because we want to feel alive. We feel threatened. We have to have a certain amount of power. But it has to be tempered with mercy and love and all those things. Our ego is a power thing. It's the two-edged sword. It can either serve us to serve the higher worlds, or it can serve our own lower nature. And it's very dangerous to be in power, to be in external power, to be given that worship. There's very interesting lines in the Scottish play where the hero says, anti-hero, whatever you want to call him, he says, he talks about the prophet, the witches prophesy he shall be king, and he says, if bad, he says, if good. He first of all says something about, it's good, it must happen, it's all then he says, if good, why do I yield to that suggestion, whose horrid image doth unfix my hair, and make my seated heart knock at my ribs against the use of nature. And what he's meaning there is that I could turn into a monster. In some senses, the greatest fear we can have is that we become like the Antichrist. That is more terrible than anything else for the soul. And that's what he was indicating there. But of course, in that trajectory, that being, even though he was semi-fictional, that would be a massive learning incarnation. He wouldn't fall into that again, so there's endless time for putting it right. So,
it's interesting you say that, actually, because I was talking to a friend the other day, and we were talking about how in our childhood, we both had fallen in with the wrong gangs, and most of the time it was because it was being coerced. And I wonder if that's what happens to a lot of people, and then they, even though they're not brave enough to say, my conscience is saying do something, don't do this. And I wonder if that's kind of a karma effect, or if it's going to ruin a person's chances with their karma, because a lot of people don't have the strength to do the right thing.
No, it's very difficult. I mean, I think that's also to do with overarching materialism, because overarching materialism says you only have this body. That's all you have. Makes you 10 times more scared of death, because this is your art. Whatever it is, that's a kind of primal fear. So, yet those beings who hold with a higher spiritual truth. And then you see incredible examples of courage, and under the terrible, that guy who was executed by ISIS. It was even a video almost. You just think, wow, all of that kind of courage. To calmly face that, and to have that, you've got to hold with a much more profound. But if you don't, if you've been, it's just one life, that's all you got, and thinking, oh, I'm going to pain whatever, The alternative, you can also have the fear of the after-death state, which is just as great, I mean, but...
Because it reminds me of Sergei Prokofiev's book, the occult significance of forgiveness, and it really tore me up when I was reading about in Tibet. One of the Buddhists was obviously under Chinese interrogation and things, and when he was finally released and he went to the Dalai Lama, I might have got the names wrong, it might not be the Dalai Lama, anyway, it doesn't matter. The point of the message was that he was saying to the Dalai Lama, there were moments when I thought I would not be able to forgive them for all the torture they put on me, and he said it was so trying, and you just think, it just, like, we're tested and tested and tested, and they really want to break us.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think there comes a point where you make a choice, or whatever. I think you can endure it. I mean, the story of Job, and there's, so much, torture. I mean, Daniel Andreev talks about the adversary force. He talks about this being called Gisterg, who's the great torturer. I don't know if you've read it, but, and, those beings are there, and they really do, test us every day, almost. But the endurance of that creates new powers and faculties. Those beings have their karma. They have, in a sense, they have a necessity. We grow through dealing with them. That's what, when we face evil, we'll create out of that. We'll create a greater good than has ever existed in the universe. That's so. But it's not easy to live with that always.
But do you think these creatures that are going to be released in the Apocalypse book, where it says about the demons being released, are they the ones that are going to be doing it to push us, or do you think or would Steiner be saying, no, they're there to just try and do that Ahriman and Luciferic bidding of destroying the world and the whole evolutionary plan?
Yeah, well, I mean, you could say, first of all, I mean, you've got the Luciferic being, who's now has a huge biography and is also in different states. But one of the first activities of the Lucifer being was to bring about first severance from the cosmos, to bring us independent thinking, but also a sense of the self in the lowest sense of the word, which is my desires. This is mine. This is my breath. This is my body. Which is also connected with the redeemed partly in the blood mysteries of families and descendants. That was the first, and Lucifer also, that great fall was the fall into, you could call, the organic condition, where we have our own organs. Not yours, mine, my breathing, my body. So that realm of mine, not thine, which was a very important part of our world evolution, but also what the Luciferic being brought, great wisdom to the earth. A lot of some of the earlier teachings have got a massive amount of the Luciferic within them, about breathing, positioning oneself into the cosmos in different ways. There's a whole system there.
Well, that's why he's the first light bringer, isn't he?
Yeah, he brought that light, and he brought it down, but he didn't know how to bring it up again. He brought it down necessarily for our development of our consciousness. What the Christ being did was then to give it, able to make the ladder upwards again, to make immortal. That the Greeks came to this point. Wow, God, I'm beautiful. I've got and all they said, oh, I'm clever. All that stuff. But wow, why don't I last forever? And so the whole meaning of the Christ is to make immortal all that is best, all that is developed through the history of wisdom. And that was the great deed and intention, and which one has to say, as the Christ being entered, or in Jesus of Nazareth anyway, entered more and more into the human condition, he was unavoidably identified more and more with that sense of doubt. The very condition of it give him that doubt. Will I be able to do it? And then he tests it like a seed. He drops into hell. Like a seed drops into the soil where it's broken down. But then it grows up. It bursts open and becomes. So that whole trajectory is, you know, and then of course what happened there is that before that he had the great temptation, you know, Aram and Lucifer offering different, I make bread, you know, make bread from stones, cast yourself off and catch you, or God will give you all this, you bow down. All that stuff came, which was actually the accumulation and the experience of all human beings on a small scale, all the way through from the time, you know, I'll have all that, you know, I can do this with that, I can, you know, it's like, I want to be worshipped, you know, which is, and this came with full intensity upon this being in the wilderness. And it would have been so easy to just yield to that. But but what he said was a third thing. He didn't yield to it. He didn't run away from it either. He actually said, okay, I include you. It was a kind of act of love. I'm not going to do your will, but I include you, you know. And that's why he had this argument with the Essenes, you know. You shut out the adversary forces. You're very pure, but it's the purity of the moon. It's a reflection. It's not the blazing light of transforming light of the sun, as it was in, you know, the incarnation. So, and then all the way through, you know, he had these miracles where he'd cast devils out, minor devils that had got into human beings, which are really adversary forces latching on to organs, feeding off, taking forces from the human being, which eventually we will eventually see diseases and illnesses, again in a moral sense, that there are other beings involved in these actual, which we just call physical processes, you know. So it's, you know, as we more and more, especially in the sixth epoch, the whole way we look at the world will be different. The way we, you know, we'll perceive beings coming in. You know, either say fathers will become pregnant with the ego of the child. They always do, but they're not aware of it before it's born, you know, and then you will be able to follow souls out and eventually converse with souls on the other side, because you'll realize the karma loka connection, that when a soul is going out, it's recollecting backwards. And at the same time, the grief waves, often people, so these two things are coincident. When a being is on the other side, is recollecting something, the being that's left behind is recollecting the same thing from a different point of view. And if that is understood and developed, that will be a real bridge of direct communication. There are all kinds of things that will happen which are outside, not even the imagination of the present world, you know. So, and that's the sixth epoch will also see all the developments that will come in the next, all the culture ages leading up to the final seventh, as also the redemption of old age will come then as well. So there are so many things, and everything is to be changing with us. The animals will have a different relationship to us, the plants, you know. So,
well, I reread the book of Revelation again recently, and this time I noticed nobody's named in it. And I think in the past, when I've read it, say for example the great angel, I always just assumed that was Michael. And when they talk about the Lamb of God, in my head it was always the Christ. And I thought them names were written in it, but when I reread it, there are no names.
the only name I think there is, I can't remember, I think there's Abaddon, which is one of the fallen angels. Yeah, that only, of course, there are place names of the seven churches.
Of the churches, yeah, but no persons like,
No,
you're led to assume that it's Archangel Michael is the great angel.
Yeah.
Or the person on the white horse.
Yeah. Those are, when you have the four horsemen of the apocalypse, it's quite difficult to identify what they actually signify in some senses. But they are representative of echoes of what we have done to the earth. Looking at all these beings involved, you have in the interior of the earth, you have, to a certain extent, the beings called the Titans, who are held down by the mineral sphere, which was, the thrones involved in that process, the higher hierarchies. Steiner points out that if you actually took the mineral sphere away, the earth would just explode outwards into the universe. It's actually held in place, and those beings are held down. And the nine interior spheres, which is the second most occult mystery, is that's all the time reacting. It's a kind of mirror image of the hierarchies. It's a mirror image of the spheres we go through after death. And as evolution goes on, our consciousness, like a tree, we will root deeper as we grow higher and be able to take from those realms and transmute it, just as a tree transmutes the minerals and stuff it brings up and the water. So also that's what our destiny is. But if we do that prematurely, or if we try to do it without the spiritual consciousness or without the Christ, then we get things like we get things like the atomic bomb. You know, in a way, you're playing around with these forces which you're not really, in a holistic sense, morally prepared to do. You haven't, though of course, you know, in some senses, a lot of those scientists were quite high moral beings, but they still hadn't, you know, the very fact that their intellect was serving this thing, this alteration of substance to produce this, is a signature of Ahriman. And old Steiner points out in this, something in the Sixth Epoch too, when you want to do an experiment with matter, you have to perceive it as sacred, and you have to get yourself into a state. And when you get yourself into a certain condition, the matter is already responding to you. Already there's a connection between the elemental beings of the material world and your soul, your inner being, which in our present time there isn't. There is that, you know, complete, this just, you know, I'm just in the lab and I'm just doing, it's got nothing to do with what I'm feeling, you know. So, and all those things will be manifest.
So this book of Revelation, it doesn't have to be, it could be subjective as well. It could be everyone's going through this in their development.
That's true. I mean, in a way, it's Edgar Casey. I've got it somewhere. I don't know. He does a thing on the book of Revelation. He talks about it as the transformation of the centers of the body, you know, it's like the centers of the chakras, you know, you're going through. So it is that, but that's the thing is, the outer macro will be in tandem with the inner collective transformation of humanity, you know. So we have this thing between, in a way, we've all got to do certain definite things with our different parts of our being. But then again, as Blake would say, in spite of these very profound laws of the different transformations, what will appear in each human being was something totally unique. You know, this is the idea of the eternal soul, that every human being is potentially to become a completely unique, indispensable part of the universal world evolution. You know, which that's the real Christian thing. It's not just a general thing where you just transform and then dissolve into the wall. It's this uniqueness. And my little statement I put in one of my dramas is, it's when the inestimable heights of individuality meet the immeasurable depths of communion. You know, that's really what it's about.
Well, I was also thinking about how if it's transforming yourselves and you're battling your own thankfully two demons only in the book of Revelation, because someone was, again, when I was reading it with someone, we were talking about how there's, like you said at the beginning, 7 angels, 7 lamps, 7 candles, so on, 7 stars round the throne. Thank the gods. And there's only 2 baddies, like the 2 monsters. But like you were saying, so Lucifer is like the herald of the coming of the Antichrist, which I take is more of the Aramanic version of it. And if you're doing it from a subjective point of view, it's obviously working on yourself, of your own 2 dark ways of thinking, because we kind of have Lucifer and Araman within us, don't we?
Well, that's the whole thing, is that these beings they can get a handle on us. You know, way we can allow them in, but they've only got to be allowed in when we can consciously transform them. You know, certain things, this word that's very current today, portals. You know, when you do certain things, you make portals for beings. On the good and bad, you know, if you drink alcohol, you make a portal for a certain being to come into you. Or drugs will make a portal. And, I mean, you know, when you take drink, I mean, there's some really good representations of this on the media. People, you know, it's really interesting that, you know, alcohol really does activate the double. You know, it's I've seen it so many times.
Yeah, I've seen it in people, and I see it in pubs, and you can see the darkness around them, even though they're not aware of it. You know, and you can feel that kind of like it's laughing at everyone. I've got control of you now, and they don't know it because it gives them a false illusion.
It's a kind of world cynicism that arises in them too. And drugs too. I mean, because what happens, say with drugs, I mean, like cocaine, what you're doing is you're stealing energy out of your organs, in which the divine forces are at work. Only when you're a very advanced yogi can you master them in the right way. You're stealing it, and you're taking it up into your head, because you don't know that's what you're doing, but you're giving it these forces. Whoa, and when you're on cocaine, it's like, whoa, I can do anything, because but you're paying the price because you're actually depleting your internal organs. And I've seen this also with alcohol. You're doing a similar thing. You're denying the ego, and the astral body is feeding off all this stuff. And you can get hit later on. You can be drinking a lot in your 20s, but in the early 50s you can get seriously ill because of it, because the ether body is no longer being able to repair it. So, and all these the portals of the higher worlds are the ones where you do meditation. You then let in beings of higher frequency into your life. So. And habits. I mean, I know I'm not perfect by any means, and things that I enjoy while it's happening, but then afterwards, I see what that does. I've noticed certain things, like I won't be able to. My drawing's not as good. My thinking's not as clear. All those things will, take it away from you.
I can give you a brilliant example of that. I was house sitting the other week, and they put on, I like Terry Pratchett, and they've made Good Omens into a series. I've seen book 1. Anyway, series 2 was on, so I thought I'll watch that, and I binge watched it for the whole day.
Yeah.
And when it switched off, I didn't feel like I was me. Yeah. It was like I'd been sucked out, and I wasn't right for definitely the next 12 hours.
Yeah.
And I know I went to bed, but couldn't stop thinking about that program, so it obviously had caught me.
Yeah.
And I woke up in the morning still thinking about the program. I was trying to do all my Steiner exercises to let go, and it took a long time, and I was not right.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's difficult because we need these little bit of distraction, a little bit of what you fancy does you good. But it's very difficult to get a little bit, because the whole design is to grab you more and more and more, because in a way they want your spiritual energy for themselves, because they don't have it, and they want what you've got, and they give you what they've got, which is a misery and weakness of energies, all
disassociation.
Yeah. It's this whole mystery of addiction. Addiction. You go through obsession to possession to addiction. And addiction is when it's actually gone into ether body, and you almost can't live without it. And you pull people away from their addictions. It's very difficult to do, and they won't thank you initially. They won't thank you for it at all. So it's really, and to understand how, in a way, a lot of this media stuff is a luciferic escapism, which works on the astral body, pulls it out. Once it's got that out, then it can go into the deeper level, into the ether body, and then it's turning from let's do this, into I've got to do this, is all I want to do. It's that watching that trajectory is really important, and all the great spiritual teachings prepare in the opposite direction. It's like an exercise I do. I often do these to go to sleep, and I've noticed also if I watch too much, and I sometimes do a little bit, I can't recollect my dreams as well. If I get my cycle right, I go to sleep, I have a dream, I wake up, I recollect it, go to sleep, wake up, recollect. I can do that if I've done things slightly wrong, I get brain fog, I can't get it. You can have a dream, and it's an amazing dream, and you wake up and you've immediately lost it. And once it's really difficult to get it back. And it's sort of an image also of what happens in the spiritual worlds can happen if you deny the higher worlds and you go into world, and you can hear people all around you, souls. You can't quite hear what they're saying, and they can't hear you. It's like a wall comes down completely, super physical wall, and it's understanding those processes, because it's important for me. Like being able to recollect dreams also means that the thing is open. I've got open to these levels, so I can then wake up and think some really amazing thoughts, but then go in and have an interesting dream. And so, all that stuff is clearing making those portals, because in a way we do need portals into the underworld, but only so that we can shine the light of the overworld into it. You know, if we're just underworld, then we're completely seduced by it. But yeah.
Well, maybe let's go to the light side of it, because we're going to use for this talk. I went to the jury exhibition, and it had all his drawings of the apocalypse, which is why I wanted to also do this show. But one of the great drawings was obviously of what we are assuming is the Christ in the book of Revelation. It never actually names him. He's got the 7 stars. He's got a lot of symbolism around him, and maybe you could discuss a bit about who that is in the book of Revelation, or what Steiner's saying about this figure.
Well, I mean, the first thing is the Alpha. I'm the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end, which is really so true. I mean, the descent of the solar logos, way back in prehistory, this being's decision to descend, to come down into this world beingness, you know, and this is that's the Alpha, and then the Omega, you know, transcendentally, I am also the farther away, I am the future, you know, and I'm drawing you towards me. I first of all came down, and I overlit all your civilizations, and you felt the presence nearer and nearer until there was there. And then I was exposed to all the darkness that had existed. But I transcended, and then I could lead you up, and over all the civilizations to come, I will be leading you up. You know, and at the end of this cycle, this is why I said to people in the study group, this being is with us now. And that nowness contains the end of the world cycle of this evolution. And it's that which is working on us, it's very present. It's drawing us through time, through all our experiences, our thoughts and feelings, towards this very distant, yet paradoxically most near. This is the great paradox. The being that's most near to your eternal nature is also the being that's most far simultaneously, you know. So that being it's full of what to a human being would just call paradox, but it's also the great mystery. It's the divine Trinity. So,
with that being, Steiner says, because he's in the etheric now, so that's why he can come to us from the future, and for those that want to work with the Christ, we should be able to, over time, connect with him, and then that will help with our next lives and our next lives. But really, he's saying that the dark forces like Lucifer and Aaron, they're here and now and much closer. You gave a wonderful analogy of Araman looking at him as a drunkard. He wants healing, but he doesn't. Maybe you could give that analogy for the show.
Yeah, it's like somebody who is an alcoholic, who knows that it's wrong, and they suffer from it afterwards when they fell in. They got a terrible hangover and stuff. And somebody who loves them, who wants to help them. So the person who's helping is always hiding the bottles or taking them away, and then the alcoholic is always finding them and hiding them again. And so this, and resisting all the time being helped and saying, leave me alone, I want to drink, you know, saying, and it goes on until eventually the one that helps finally gets them off it. But while they're doing it, they don't thank you. They hate you. They hate you for removing their addiction. But it's only that's the beginning of this transformation of evil. You love them in spite of all that. You don't worry about that. You know that is the alcohol. It's not their real nature. You believe in their real nature, and you know that once they've got free of this thing, that will appear. But it's this, and this is with Ahriman. His real nature is eventually to serve the cosmic plan. But it will only happen when the Christ force, working through human beings, can redeem Ahriman. He can't do it himself, and he's not going to thank us until it's done. And when it is done, then he will thank us. He will become a great servant of world evolution. You could even say, in all these extremes of technology, whether it's the particle colliders or space technology or AI, you can see Ahriman wanting to impose his will, his kind of intellect on humanity, to take it into his direction, make us in his image. But if we take in the higher divine reality, then we will be able to do something with all these manifestations of Ahriman and transform them, transfigure them. Even something like, for instance, the great particle colliders, they want to build this 3 times bigger, is a kind of Ahrimanic intention to make a ring around the whole Earth, but that, when we reach the superphysical and we've redeemed, that will be turned into something which will master. It'll bind the subnatural world and transform it. So, in a way, none of our technology will be wasted. All of it is capable of being transformed again into higher superphysical faculties of the human being. First of all, Lucifer brought us down into organism. We have all these extraordinary, intricate systems in our body, and all the animals and all that stuff. And then it was Ahriman worked on, and he took the secrets of the biosphere, which was like elemental memories of the great cosmic beings that created the earth. The elemental beings had the task of preserving it in a way before you come down. But Ahriman took it from underneath and freeze-dried these memories, these great divine processes, into isolated, decontextualized devices. And because of the descent into hell and the resurrection, it was then possible for the human ego to begin the transformation of those what had fallen under Ahriman's realm. And I say this is connected with the rise of materialism, like the Enlightenment, mainly sort of the French thing, and then the Industrial Revolution. All those things were all where human thought, given a new faculty of consciousness through the higher worlds, through the resurrection, then were drawing up also all those fallen manifestations, memories of cosmic creativity, which reappear as all these technological devices, which are really externalizations of processes that were once organic, once devechanic, then organic, then mechanic, and then they've got to go back the other way till they become renewed in the completely new faculties of the human being in the future. Like I always say, electricity, which is now really fallen light, and if we're sucked into it completely, we go into the 8th sphere. If we redeem electricity, what it does is lift it up and becomes a world-encircling thought organism. And if we lift up magnetism, it becomes a world-encompassing feeling organism. And like all the forces of nature, the externalities will be transmuted into faculties, new faculties, which are subservient to the divine human being, who is the manifestation of love, which is actually what Jupiter is. We're in the planet of wisdom now. The old moon was, became the Earth, which is imbued with extraordinary wisdom in all the biospheres, all the things that are going on, the Earth, where it's constructed, its relationship to the cosmos. The next stage is to make it into the planet of love, which is what Jupiter is, when literally the forces of nature radiate a love, a feeling which is almost inexpressible, indescribable, but it's, you can feel it when you feel love yourself for something or something for you, So, yeah.
Well, the power of love is what we should be working with and understanding. I know there's lots of different types of love, and we were talking about Philadelphia earlier, which is brotherly love, which is something that once humanity properly understands that, like you're saying, in the next epoch, would be able to be working as part of the evolution of the planet, us, and working with the divine. So it's trying to understand what love is, but I know people still struggle with love, whether it's, ego love or, love for the self, or, it's something that's trying to teach people about this. And I know a lot of people get turned off from Christ because it's all about love, because they don't understand what love is he's come with.
Yeah, I think that, because love is only really manifests its fullness when it is, you are fully consciously putting it to the service of the all, the greater. And the problem with, this is what Ahriman's done through materialism and denying all other isms, is that he's taken away the purpose. So, you can't, unless you're serving a one purpose, there can't be that. Like, there's no fellow feeling, because you're not. It's not a fellowship that is sailing towards the future, and that's really what Ahriman's done. The overarching material severs you from purpose, so that you don't really, the will collapses, and then you start serving. You can't deviating into all sorts of other things, because once you get that common sense, then we're all sharing this process, and we look around us and we see others, and we see, wow, this is evolving. I mean, you can't calculate the extraordinary things that will come from beings all around you in the future. Whereas what Ahriman does is you have we all do it. We have a tendency to devalue other human beings. I get on the train, there are too many in my way. You know what I mean? You have a very you just see the external.
Yeah.
You don't really sense what is evolving. Whereas that experience I had with that child was that I suddenly saw this wonder of a being. Because it wasn't covered over with all this purposelessness. It was.
You best just explain what you mean, because that could be taken in many ways. The experience you had with a child.
No.
What actually happened was you was in a shop.
Yeah.
You told the story.
Well, I was just in the shop, and I go to it regularly, and this mother came in with this little child, and the child just came around the corner and looked in my eyes, and I looked at it. It was just this immediate, extraordinary sort of contact. I felt something was looking at me out of another dimension, and it was just it made my day, actually. I mean, even the mother, because I looked at her afterwards, and she smiled as though she completely understood, what it was about. And it was just, and as I say, as you rightly say, we have to be careful today, because, this idea of looking at kids. I mean, children are amazing. I don't have any of my own. My brother has 5, and it's like looking at them is an extraordinary thing, because you're also looking at earlier states of world consciousness, and the way they do it. It's observation. It's the artist. You observe. I mean, I always stress people, observe, because I've been an actor and I write. Observation. You can tell a lot from observing human beings, what's going on. I see in the world situation now. I can see, I can see what's behind something being, was good or bad, and I try not to say, oh, you're just all bad, but I can say this is bad. I know, and I foretold this. I could see where you're going, and that's the whole thing about being aware of others. That's the difference between feeling and emotion, really. Emotion is all about your pent-up passions and frustrations, and you're getting it all out, But feeling is about being aware. You're feeling what lives around you, You're not just emoting my frustrations, so...
And obviously Christ talks about, we need to be little children to get into heaven or something. I'm trying to remember the quote.
Yes,
I feel awful. I can't remember it properly.
Yeah,
but it's not just meaning, be a little young child. That's the only way you'll get in. But it's meaning being well, maybe you want to explain. Why do we want to be children to go into heaven?
In a way, it's this ever open. Of course, ever open. The slightly more occult meaning of that is that to evolve, we have to become children again. We have to reincarnate. We have to be children to absorb new conditions. The child is a unique state. It's like we go back to the beginnings of the earth in each incarnation. In a way, though, the earth itself has evolved, and we absorb it in the way we as human beings absorb the earth at the very beginnings, where we're surrounded by spiritual beings, because very small children are surrounded by spiritual beings in the way all of us as were, in early stages of the incarnation. And then we grow up, and we lose. We also go through all this history of the loss of that connection as we grow up, and then we can get Ahrimanic. But then, of course, through something like spiritual science, we reconnect in a new consciousness with all those beings. That's what the next level is.
Well, I want to finish on that, because I think it's quite a nice uplifting, talking about unconditional love and the Christ love, and let us all be the children. So thank you very much, Patrick. It was great to chat again, and I look forward to next time.
Okay, you're welcome.